Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode here at Shots Fired Podcasting with myself, KLW HitmanPike, of course, Battlefield eSports shoutcaster with the Hardcore League. Joining me this evening, guys, we have Mr. Deadeye, founder of Hardcore League, and pretty much the pioneer of Battlefield eSports. So, Dead, how the devil are you this evening, my dude?
I'm doing good, brother. Doing good. I can't complain. No one would listen if I did, so.
It's always a sob story from you, man. No, we get it, man. We get it. No, there's a lot of work going on behind the scenes right there, getting set up for pre and post RSP events. And yeah, so Dad's been getting caught up with those events over the last couple of weeks. But leading up to RSP and the release, we're not slacking off here at the Hardcore League. We've got a number of events going on for you guys, matches, and various other things for you guys to get involved with. Plenty of prizes to be won as well. So we'll be discussing that a little bit later on in the in the podcast. And of course, we're going to be having Mr. Dum Dum join us at some point this evening. Unfortunately, he's having some technical issues at the moment, but once he resolves those issues, he will be jumping into the cast itself. In the meantime, guys, I don't know whether you've been catching up with the events that we've had over the last couple of weeks, but last weekend we had Friday Night Battlefield, which, if I'm not mistaken, that's marked, if it was last Friday or the Friday before, marked the first event that we've covered in Battlefield 5, if I'm not mistaken there, Dad?
That is correct. Yeah, I covered Friday Night Battlefield on both PlayStation and Xbox last Friday, which was the first foray that you guys saw here on Twitch into the spectator mode, which I jumped into spectator mode when I was in Sweden and shoutcasted the Game Changers event, which you can find on our YouTube. But as far as live events, yes, I did notice in chat here we got Dr. Optimize rating with a party of 3. Now, if I'm not mistaken, Dr. Optimize is part of the PG community, the Point Gap community. Team. As some of you may know, Point Gap has a competitive team, but they also have a community side. And if I'm not mistaken, Dr. Optimize is part of that. I also got Extreme in the chat, one of our content guys, getting his screenshots. How you guys doing?
Yeah, no, we've got some really good names in the chat there. Hugh, my dude, what is going on? Hugh representing Enjoy Gaming Community. Dr. Optimize, if I'm not mistaken, did I cover you as part of the Battlefield finale event that we ran approximately 4 weeks ago? I do recognise your name, and I know Point Gap Community were involved in said match. That was a pretty awesome match. Do get to rerun it quite a lot because it seems to gain quite a lot of traction. People seem to really enjoy the larger scale events, the 32 versus 32. We do appreciate there is also a market as well for those small scale events, the 5v5s, and that's something that we might look at definitely supporting in the future. Who knows? But yeah, no, absolutely. Mr. Extreme, no, it's good to have you in here, my dude. No, appreciate you stopping by. Just saw HitmanPike talking. I'm just getting loads of stick from Enjoy in the chat as always. But yeah, I mean, did you see any big players during the Friday Night Battlefield event there, Dad?
Oh yeah, we had all kinds of people in there. A lot of teams from the Hardcore League jumped in. Obviously on Xbox, the guy there on Xbox is Prophet on Fire. We followed him quite a bit, and some of his minions over on the PlayStation side of things. I believe we saw Hubert in there. We saw Briz in there. We saw some of the Hardcore League PlayStation 4 teams, and then of course the lady of the evening over there for the PlayStation side of Friday Night Battlefield, Miss Lady Arsenic,
Yeah.
was in there as well.
No, so a good show for all the community, really, guys. And then, of course, this is your opportunity to get showcased by us. You can rub shoulders with the various streamers and big names of the Battlefield community. And this is your opportunity, really, just to get networked and meet up with those guys, play with those guys. And Friday Night Battlefield delivers that and has been delivering that for years now. I mean, I'm trying to think. I think Friday Night Battlefield actually goes back to Battlefield 4, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, I believe so. Especially when we had RSP that had so many options. The Friday Night Battlefield, and we saw a return of that a little bit in Battlefield 1 there toward the end as we got more options on random servers. But traditionally, Friday Night Battlefields currently, it's just jump into a server and and try to come together. But on the previous titles, they normally did really neat events and
Yeah.
different stipulations for the Friday Night Battlefield. So you would jump into Friday Night Battlefield and Profit on Fire, or Lady Arsenic would say, get X amount of kills with this gadget or weapon, and you would have the possibility of winning a best community in the world dog tag,
Yeah.
and things like that, which I hope to see the return of, uh, as soon as we get RSP, which we don't have a date or any information really on RSP. It's just
No,
kind of
it's
up in the air.
interesting that you would touch on that, Dad, because obviously RSP is a massive topic for the Battlefield community. For a lot of us, we kind of feel like we're in the dark on on this subject, and we're not. And if anything, I think that's probably making people more paranoid, because people are sort of even speculating now that there's not going to be an RSP, and I mean, aside from the fact that RSP is a massive money maker for DICE, and they're never going to get rid of something that makes them money. It's obviously what makes the game function on a certain level, and it also is what enables the community to really thrive and develop itself. Now, me personally, I love this game, I love this series, as a lot of us do here, but it's definitely been a frustrating few months of sort of trying to decide what's going to happen, where this community's headed. And obviously with the pre-sales where they're at, we're going to have to see some fairly drastic measures taken, hopefully over the next few weeks and months by DICE, just to sort of just inform the community really. And we appreciate they've got a lot of issues going on, and they're getting pulled in all different directions, and so things have had to get sidelined. But I think it would just be great just to have some information. This community is very passionate, very dedicated, and our paranoia can run away with us a little bit if we're not too sure about what exactly is going on.
Well, and I will say this, I've had the opportunity and the pleasure to meet with some of the folks over there, Jeff and Dan, and several of the developers, including Daniel Berlin, and I've talked to these guys, and I can tell you from experience, from sitting down and talking with them, that their hearts and minds are in the right place. I think there's other powers that kind of hinder what they would like to do, as far as the community goes. But when it comes to rent servers, it is so huge. It is so huge for the community to have rent servers, because I mean, at the end of the day, I believe they'll do some kind of matchmaking if they don't do rent servers. To kind of like Rainbow Six Siege, where we can go in and grab a server for an hour, and utilize it for events and matches and things like that, which will work for us. However, it I pray that they don't do it that way, because RSP is such a huge asset to the community, and it ensures the longevity of the game. Because again, we have a community like no other. You can go anywhere and ask anybody that's been a part of these other communities. The Battlefield community is unique, and it's very tight knit, and yet welcoming at the same time. We love bringing new players into the community, but not having the rent server will just be a horrible move on EA and Dice's part if they decide not to do that. I think I think more so than the TTK debacle that we recently saw.
Sure, no, absolutely, and there was some quite interesting scenes, memes, and quotes coming out of that period there. I think in just under 2 weeks, we managed to get DICE to do pretty much a full U-turn on their plans to change up the TTK again, and it has to be said, I have struggled playing the game recently, and I usually don't struggle playing this game, and not in terms of coming back to it and putting the hours in, but just getting kills. Like, my kill death ratios dropped by a full 0.5%. Sorry, yeah, 0.5%. Yeah, 0.05% is what I meant to say. So, yeah, for going from zero point 0.8 to 0.75. You know, my kill death ratio was never great, never has been since 2005. I'm a PTFO medic all the way. Fully accept that I am just not a threat on the field, but you know, that's the nature of the game. So
Well,
I've definitely I've struggled over the last sort of couple of weeks. I don't know about you, Dad.
I actually have not. I've taken to Battlefield 5 extremely well. It takes me back to Battlefield 4, Battlefield 3. Kind of Bad Company 2 with the gunplay and things like that. So, I've done extremely well in Battlefield 5. And as far as the TTK goes, that whole situation. My thoughts on it were, I love the TTK where it was at, as most of the community did. But when it comes down to it, I can adjust to TTK. Uh, there's other problems they definitely should have focused on outside of the TTK. The time to death, the net code issues, the various bugs with the V1s, with the coins after max level, all kinds of things that they could have focused on beforehand. Um, but I mean, I see what they were trying to do. I think they just went about it the wrong way. Obviously we've got Christmas coming up, and they wanted to retain the players that we're going to be picking up the game for Christmas. And again, this is all personal opinions of mine, Deadeye, not necessarily the hardcore league. But what I think they were ultimately trying to do was to appeal to other players with that longer TTK, so that they would be like, hey, yeah, definitely get this game for Christmas, and try to retain those players. Um, and so a lot of people were upset about it, and they
Yeah.
did end up reverting it. And what the community needs to know is EA and Dice didn't revert that TTK because they had so many people spewing hate. Um, as one of the game changers, we often give a lot of feedback, and the feedback from the game changers were pretty, pretty on par, resounding that the TTK didn't need to be adjusted and it needed to go back. So I believe that EA and Dice reverted back to the original TTK based on the constructive, positive feedback that they got, in regards to it, rather than the mountains of hate that came across.
Mm,
But it is a testament of what the community can accomplish, and not only that, people have got to sit back and think about. Um, Dice made a huge statement by reverting that back. They
yeah.
come in and they said, okay, guys, we hear you, we see what's going on, we've gathered the information, and keeping our core community happy is more important to us than the bottom dollar at the end of Christmas, which says a huge amount about EA and Dice. And I think what we really need to do now is press RSP the same way that
Sure.
we were that we uh, opposed the TTK change. Not with the toxicity, but just being very active, very adamant, and stating why it will help everybody out, because it most certainly will, and it would completely mitigate all the problems that they're currently having.
Yeah.
As far as because Battlefield is a skill game. It's a skill first person shooter.
Mm-hmm.
And, I grew up in a day when you bought a video game, you either got good at it or you didn't beat it. That was the bottom line. Either you got good at it or you didn't beat it. There was no live updates. You didn't get changes to the game. You played what you got, and you learned how to get better. I mean, at the end of the day, that's what it was all about, was getting better at the video game and becoming proficient at playing that video game, and that was part of the appeal. And it's almost like coming in and buying a racing game and saying, I can't beat these other cars. And so you send a letter to the developer and they'll like, okay, well, we'll slow the cars down so you can beat them. You don't get any better by doing that, and I think that's what they were kind of trying to do there.
Yeah.
But we realized that it was not the way to go. So if they were to implement RSP, I guarantee you there would be multiple communities out there that would come out with more novice friendly settings, so that these new players that come in that aren't exactly familiar with Battlefield, and they have to get used to the play style and the gunplay and the
Mm-hmm.
TTK, they would have servers to go to. I mean, we saw it on Battlefield 4 all the time. It would be newbie servers or novice servers or training servers
Hmm.
where the different settings were adjusted. Plus, it also appeals to the other end of the spectrum, the people that want it super hardcore with the no mini maps and
Absolutely.
almost straight mill sim. So they could totally squash all of these issues that they are having by releasing RSP and then dedicating their resources to fixing bugs that RSP would have no control over, because RSP is going to mitigate the TTK. It's going to mitigate the the ammo, the things like that, depending on the settings that they put in there. It is going to allow communities and teams to set up servers to appeal to every type of player, new players,
Mm.
mediocre players, and veteran players. There will be servers out there for everybody should they implement that, and that will free up their time to get into the bugs that have to be
Yeah.
fixed on their end, which are the coins after max level,
Mm.
the glitches with the B1 rockets, several different things that are happening. They can go in there and fix that if they were just to release RSP, because then they wouldn't have to worry about appealing to all these different players on the base game settings, because each different community would be able to set that server up to facilitate their community. And there's newbies out there that would be like, hey, I'm going to rent a server just for us new guys. And hell, I tell you what, I'll say this right now. If pulling in new players that aren't very skilled at the game is one of their primary focuses,
Mm.
the hardcore league will run a server 24/7 for newbies if they give it to us. If they gave it to us under that pretense, we will run a server for people to get allocated to the game. We'll have it set up to where it's longer TTKs and things like that, just for the new guys to jump in there and have a place to go.
Absolutely, and that sounds like the total way forward they need to take this project, because right now where the community is, we're pretty much paralyzed, and it's just had an incredibly negative effect. And the longer it goes on, even by weeks, the effect develops and it gets worse, and communities fall apart, and it's tragic to see, because there's a lot of communities out there that won't recover from this, and that might have otherwise gone on to continue into Battlefield 5. But Dr. Optimize, just touching on there, medics are somewhat a dying breed on Battlefield 5. Don't seem to see as many as in Battlefield 1. Yeah, I have to agree with you to a certain extent. I do feel like they are watering down the classes a little bit, just with the way that they've introduced certain new features. So, for example, instead of now getting ammo, being able to get like explosives from a support, you have to go to a support crate. I don't mind that so much, but it does kind of, aside from the fact that support can still hand out bullets and like light ammunition, it does kind of make it very frustrating when you're in the middle of nowhere and you've got all the four of the squad, and you've got your assault, and your assault's already put 2 or 3 Panzerfausts into the tank, and then you've got nothing left to get that tank with, so despite the fact that you've got that full squad there. So you might have that PTFO, but because of the new introduction of how they're doing things, and these having these main points, and having it so that any member of your squad can revive a player, that definitely, to a certain extent, to me anyway, it does feel like they have taken a little bit away from the individual roles, whilst at the same time adding to the game. Because I don't just I'm not saying I dislike these new features. I think they're pretty cool, but I definitely want to see them build on the classes and build on what gives the classes their individuality. Because right now, and I know this happens at the beginning of all Battlefield series releases, the tools that you receive are quite limited, and they have to think quite a lot about how the various tools, that if they're going to bring them into the game, how they're going to impact on the gameplay, and everything has to be balanced, and everything has to be this rock paper scissors sort of scenario. So, I mean, Deb, what are your thoughts on that?
I absolutely have some thoughts on that, and the support not being able to provide things like Panzerfaust and grenades and things like that, I think is a huge oversight that they need to fix. Obviously they need to do it, as they had before, where an ammo pouch does not provide those things. But I think the ammo crate most certainly should, because it's adversely affecting our medics as well. And what I mean by that is, like you were saying, you're pushing an objective, you're on the outside of the objective, so you don't have an ammo crate handy, but there's a tank on the objective, so you can't just run in there and try to grab ammo. So you're relying on your squad to provide you with the tools that you need to
Mm-hmm.
get the job done as a full unit. Well, what ends up happening is when that assault runs out of rockets and everything, they die. They're like, no, don't pick me up so I can come back with ammo. And then again, you don't have the medic again is not as viable in a situation like that, because they don't need that revive, because they need ammo more important than they need to be up. So again, it takes away from the medic class. Now, I personally, I've seen a lot of medics, a lot of blueberry medics reviving me. I've seen a lot of medics on the field. I've played medics some, and I think medics are extremely useful for the fact that they can revive anybody on the team and not just your squad mates. um, so it lends itself there. However,
Yeah.
with the swipe feature in place, the squad wipe, where if your entire squad gets wiped, you can't get a revive. That again diminishes the medic's viability, because that could be a saving grace. If you've got a player on your team that's not in your squad, that's a medic, and one of you and your squad goes down, but yet you can get a revive from a somebody outside of your squad. That keeps your squad in the fight.
Mm.
I do like the swipe though. It rewards a player for finishing the job, so to
Yeah.
speak. If you've got a squad pushing an objective and you wipe them all out, you've got one more. You wipe them, and that they can't spawn right back on that, or they're not going to get a revive from
Mm.
anybody else. That plays into the game as well. But I do think they need to revamp the ammo crates to where the support is able to resupply assaults, to make them more viable.
Perhaps like a way of mitigating that, or meeting the developers halfway on this, would be for the support to have a limited amount of ammunition crates that could provide larger rounds. Now, I'm not too sure how they go about that, but something that could work in conjunction with the smaller ammunition crates.
I wouldn't mind it if they came out with a third tier ammo crate that was just for revive or replenishing heavy artillery, mines, Panzerfaust,
Mm.
things like that. If your squad is going to run like that, ultimately, I think that the ammo crate needs to do that right off the bat. But I also agree with you.
Yeah,
I think what they should do is they should continue down the path to attrition, because I think it supports really good squad play, and people
absolutely.
need to learn to use that. So I think that the support should get the option of an ammo pouch and an ammo crate. The ammo pouch only refills actual ammunition, bullets, and then the ammo crate refills Panzerfaust mines, grenades, and ammunition. But they have a limited amount of those. Let's say they start out with three, but they can refill those three ammo crates at an actual ammo resupply station. So, if your squad can't get that tank off the objective with three ammo crates from your support, you're doing something wrong.
Hmm.
But any good squad's going to be able to throw that ammo out, keep their assaults ammoed up,
Yeah.
shooting rockets at that tank, their medic keeping them up, and then once they remove that tank or remove the threat, they're able to move on the objective, and the support guy is able to re-ammo up on all of his ammo crates that he could throw out later.
No, absolutely, and it's definitely something that we have picked up on optimizing. I think it's a good point for you to raise there, Hubert. Just having a discussion about the practice range, saying how he finds it not up to scratch, and he would like to see more. What were we saying there? Sorry, where would you like to have specializations to get whatever weapon you use? So yeah, no, absolutely, Hugh. I could not agree more with you there, to be honest. As a veteran player, the practice range things brings very little for me to be able to develop my skills. I think if you're a new player to the game, then absolutely. But I was hoping to see just more shooting ranges, just the ability to do more stuff in multiplayer. I was a little bit disappointed with the multiplayer practice range as well. But at the end of the day, I'm still very much glad to see a practice range being used, because it's going to give these new players the opportunity to get really to grips with the weapons and, more importantly, the vehicles, which in the past I definitely think has been an issue for newer players joining the game. And Dad touched on it earlier. These guys need a slightly more protected environment. You know, even if you've got that experience of playing first-person shooter games, you know, when you approach Battlefield as a new game, you want to approach it right, because it's so easy to get frustrated with this game if you don't play it right, or if you don't play it in the right context with the right people. And obviously that's something that Hardcore League is able to come in and help you with. We provide that network of teams, communities, and just individuals who will want to join up and meet together. And Friday Night Battlefield, of course, they do a similar thing, and we work with the Phoenix Elite Aerial League. They're on the same wavelength as well, guys. So we've got just a ton of stuff going on for you guys over the next couple of weeks as well. In fact, tomorrow we have grand competitions, and I know Dad is very excited to tell us a little bit about that.
Absolutely. I do want to address something I'm seeing in chat here about Dr. Optimize and Extreme talking about the interactions with the crates, whereas in the pouches you don't have to interact with. You know, you can throw them at somebody and
Yeah.
they'll get ammo and they'll get health. On the crates, you know, they do have to run up and you hit the button on them, which works pretty fluently and pretty quickly. Now, I actually have to disagree with that. I like the interaction because, again, you know, at the end of the day, Battlefield is a squad-based game, and in my opinion, the squad-based game relies heavily on communication. So, and those are things that are going to come with time. Veteran
Sure.
players are going to learn these type of things. I've learned them myself. You know, I see crates all the time, and I hit a crate every time I see one. You know, if I see a crate that either a medic or a support has thrown down, I re-ammo up from those things all the
No,
time because
absolutely, it's prudent.
I know, yeah, I know how to utilize them, and I've run both of those classes and use both of those gadgets, so I know what they're about. But leading back into the squad play, which is what it plays into. If you're running with a squad and you have supports and medics on your squad running those crates, they're going to say, hey, you know, I dropped a crate right over there by the train track, or right over there by the car. There's a crate. So that communication again is what builds what, in my opinion, is the essence of Battlefield, which is the communication and the squad play. And so I think interacting with those crates adds another level of that, because it does require some communication rather than just throwing an ammo crate on your guy
Yeah.
and having ammo up. It requires that extra level of communication. Say, hey, I've got an ammo crate here. Plus, it also allows for more tactical placement. You can't just throw an ammo crate, you know, on throw an ammo crate at your feet because you know you've got a guy running behind you,
Yeah.
and he's going to run over it. You have to strategically place that crate so that it is in cover, and people do know where it is and what's that it is in cover. Um, uh, and a lot of people may not know, you know, what those crates do or what they're for. But again, that's where the squad play comes in, you know, and communication
Yeah.
um, amongst the squads. And you know, as people start learning the game and rolling with the game, they're going to realize, like myself, you know, when I see an ammo crate down, I grab it. You know, I grab ammo out of it or health out of
Yeah.
it. You know, I'll even run up to one if I don't need it and hit the button just out of reflex. So, but our grand competition events that we have coming up, we have one coming up tomorrow. That's going to be at 2 p.m. Central for Xbox, and then we have one coming up on the 29th for PlayStation. And what this is going to be is we're actually doing, you know, a test run to the best of our abilities on grand operations in a competitive setting. We're going to be bringing in our competitive teams from the hardcore league and loading them into a grand operations server and covering it as a competitive event. Obviously, it's not going to be official because I'm sure we're going to get some randoms in here and there, but we're going to cover the event, and we're going to see what it's going to look like uh, uh, for grand operations as in a competitive setting. and follow it through all 3 of the days and see how that plays out. I'm really hoping for a final stand to be at the end, but it's really just going to be how the teams.
I
Um,
would imagine that's definitely a possibility. We've had some incredibly close games over the last month or so in Battlefield 5, and it does seem to be that they have got the balancing very, very close there. With the amount of games that people have where teams come back and everything. But yeah, I mean, as a founder to an esports glomerate or league. What do you look for in a new game mode when you're sort of considering whether to take it on as a competitive game mode?
there are several different things that we look at when it comes to it being a competitive game mode that will support unofficial ladders and things like that. For the most part, our motto is play the game the way it's made. So we really like our competitive modes to incorporate everything that the battlefield has to offer: infantry, armor, and air. But I there's almost not a mode that team deathmatch really isn't something I think that we would support. Domination is an infantry mode that we're looking into supporting. But things like frontlines, breakthrough, conquest, I think they are all very viable options, and it really just depends on the flow of the game. Conquest is arguably one of the hardest to cover from a competitive standpoint because the entire map is open all the time. So when it comes to looking at something to cover it competitively, it's really the flow of the match and how the viewers are going to be able to retain that. Luckily, here at the Hardcore League, we have a really good broadcasting format that allows us to cover just about any game mode because we have experience and we have formats that allow us to keep the audience engaged and stay on the action during any one of our shoutcasts over any mode. Um, the other aspects into it, like frontlines, is an excellent option for a competitive mode because it keeps all the action centered. Breakthrough as well is another really good one, and that's why I think Grand Operations is kind of nice due to it carrying several different game modes into it. Now, the downfall of it, and something else we look at when we go to cover a competitive mode, is it has to be fair from both sides, which
Mm-hmm.
is why we run competitions on Conquest. The teams will swap sides and play from both sides because sometimes a map will have an advantage from one faction to the other. Whereas Grand Operations, that won't be as much of a
No.
possibility. So we're gonna have to see how that plays out. Um, Unfortunately, Pikey, I do have to jump out of here. I got to get to an event that I've got going on um, in real life. However, I do appreciate you guys uh, coming, hanging out with us. The questions, um, we're always open to
No, absolutely, Dead. Thank you very much for stopping by, giving your time up, guys. Well, that draws to an end episode 1.7, guys. We are getting ever so closer to the end of season 1, our pilot season here at Shots Fired Podcasting, and so far we have had some amazingly good interviews with various members of the community, and of course, guys, we have our offline segment as well, which is brought to you by The Real Dum Dum. You can check out hlteams.com. I'm sure Dad will just pop a thing up in the chat there for you. We have a listing of all our Shots Fired podcasting fixtures, and that is your number one place to check us out. Not to mention as well, guys, the hlteams.com website is also number one for signing up to the Battlefield eSports community and the Hardcore League. This is your place where you can liaise with other teams. You can create your private and public profiles, your competitive profiles, and you can network with your own team, your other teams, set up forums. The options are endless. There's a lot of support on hand with approximately 40 members of staff now. Hardcore League is definitely developing and expanding, ready to take on the trials and tribulations of post RSP. In the meantime, guys, it has been an absolutely wonderful episode with Mr. Deadeye, and we thank him dearly for stepping on board. And guys, of course, thank you very much for your interactions in the chat and turning up. As always, it's been a really enjoyable evening. Much love and respect for you guys. You are our passion. And in the meantime, I'm going to going to send you guys over to see someone. Let's just take a look at who we're going to go and see for the time being. Who we got here? Who's actually playing Battlefield 5 at the moment? I need to put my glasses back on. No. Ooh, can't see anything. But in the meantime, guys, I've got to ask you, there's a lot of people out there suffering from an ailment, and it's a really horrible ailment, IBS. I don't know whether you're familiar with it, irritable blueberry syndrome. It just so happens to be that we here at the Hardcore League, we have the cure for that condition, and that condition is a horrendous one. So I'm just trying to find the app. There it is, guys. Peace out.
Playing with IBS has always been a struggle of mine, but I'm not alone. Thousands of Battlefield players just like me suffer from irritable blueberry syndrome, but there is hope.
Hardcore League is a major advancement in the treatment of irritable blueberry syndrome and reduces the likelihood of encountering PTFO inhibitors. When compared to other PTFO therapies, Hardcore League has been proven to help players live significantly longer without IBS flare-ups or growth.
Hardcore League changed what I thought was possible for IBS treatment.
Ask your doctor about once daily Hardcore League and visit hardcoreleague.co for more information.
They're going to be dedicated just on the air combat side of things. Looking forward to Battlefield 5